Hey everyone, Razy Metzger here with Chabad Sutton. Last time I shared a story with you about fundraising. Today I want to share with you a story about a burial. This true story happened just a few months ago at Chabad Sutton. Late one night, my husband gets a call from a fellow that he knew from our old building, a lawyer, not a Jewish guy, lovely man. They used to chat in the lobby. They kept in touch. He had my husband's number. He calls my husband. He says, a few days ago, a client of mine who lives around the corner in one of the buildings on Sutton Place was unfortunately discovered by his doorman deceased in his apartment. And I'm his lawyer, so they contacted me. He has no burial plans. He has no funeral arrangements. He has no money for a plot either. And his body is in the morgue. And unfortunately, they're about to take it away to Potter's Field. And I thought maybe I should call a rabbi, and you're the only rabbi that I know. So my husband right away broke into motion. It was very late at night, so he really wasn't able to contact any of the organizations that exist for this kind of charity, but he had an idea. There's a family in our community who owns a plot, who owns some plots in Montefiore Cemetery, very close to the resting place of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And they expressed a wish that while those plots were not going to be used by any members of the family for various reasons, they wanted these plots to go to poor and other people who could not otherwise afford a Jewish burial. And there's one plot left. Now, they specifically did not want to sell these plots, which could, by the way, go for a very high sum, but they really wanted it to go to somebody who would not otherwise have a Jewish burial. So it worked. My husband called them. They immediately said yes. The funeral arrangements were made for the following day, and the burial took place on the following day. My husband went out to the cemetery and did the burial for this fellow who he had met maybe once or twice. He dropped in on Rosh Hashanah, but really did not know very well. The fascinating piece about this story happens on the car ride back from the Ohel, from the cemetery, which is the same cemetery that the Rebbe is buried in. There were some guys that this fellow had gotten to know only very recently at a nearby synagogue, yeshiva. And they heard about the funeral from the lawyer as well, and they came along with my husband in the car. And on the way home, one of them says to my husband, I'm so glad this worked out because, you know, Brian, that's the fellow who had passed, had been speaking recently about how much he wanted to be buried near the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And my husband was shocked. He had no idea that Brian had ever said anything or even knew about the Rebbe or anything like that because he really wasn't very much involved in our Chabad at all. They said, yeah, he kept talking about it. And we were like, you know, you can't really there aren't really many plots. There's nothing really existing. If you could find one, they're very expensive. Before Brian could make those arrangements were made for him. And he's buried very close to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He left no children. He left no funds for a burial. But somehow it worked out. His neshama got its wish. So as we're fundraising for Chabad Sutton, I want to share that story with you because when you give to a Chabad campaign, you're giving to soul first responders, people who are there for the needs of the soul in ways that are inexplicable and can only be ordained by God. But there needs to be a person on the ground. And I think that's where Chabad emissaries come in. We are so privileged to be here on the ground to orchestrate these arrangements.